Hello and welcome back to the finals of the World Championship in Through the Ages. My last game didn't really go that well for me. I ended up resigning at the end, and the only good news for me was that Himmelstosh at least also didn't finish that great and finished at the third position in this game. With that, I'm still in the lead, but only 2 points, so it's getting really close now, and 2 games are left for both me and Himmelstosh. In one of those games we are playing together, but the game that we are taking a look at today will be without Himmelstosh, but of course it will still be very important to score as many points as possible, ideally to win the game, so that I have a nice situation with going into the last game with Himmelstosh. So yeah, now it's getting really excited, and now without further ado, we are going to take a look at the game. The game is a 3-player game against Mortar and Swin. As you can see, I am playing in the last position, and first of all we can take a look at the leaders and wonders. And there is some theater synergy in age 3 with Marlene Dietrich, Chaplin, Fleming, also the Hollywood and the internet being there. Mahatma Gandhi is there, so definitely a lot of culture synergy in age 3. We also have Bill Gates and Sid Meier for some lab synergy. Pierre de Coubertin is there as well, who could maybe also work nicely together with the internet. We have the Manhattan Project for the military, and there's also the space flight. In H2 we have the Ocean Liner service, but no Maria. We have the Suez Canal and James Cook, so a colonization game could definitely work out nicely. We have 2 military action leaders with Napoleon and Robespierre. We have some culture leaders with Godi, Bach and Darwin, and then Newton as a strong economical leader. In H1 we have the St. Peter's Basilica, we have Universitas and Silk Road, so the 2 science-producing wonders. Himeji Castle is there, and also Machu Picchu. In H1 we have 1 military action leader with Joan of Arc. Barbarossa can help with the strength, as well as Genghis Khan. Columbus could maybe work nicely in a colonization game, same is true for Barbarossa. We have Michelangelo together with the St. Peter's Basilica, and also maybe Machu Picchu. There's Saladin as a very solid leader, and also Gutenberg for some lab and printing press synergy. Mortar is in first position, and he starts with taking the Rome roads. I think he definitely has some different choices here. Confucius could maybe also be interesting, but he ends up going for the Rome roads, and that definitely can also work out quite nicely. Swin then goes for Confucius and the Colosseum. And I think for me, the pick in this situation should be relatively clear. I will go for Boudica and the Stonehenge. Stonehenge is, I think, quite a fine wonder in 3-player games, and Boudica is just also available for me. Sun Tzu and Cleopatra will be discarded, and then the leaders left will be Ashoka, Aristotle, and Moses. So no Hammurabi or something like that who I can maybe hope for. And with that, I will just go for Boudica. There is definitely the chance that Mata will go for Sun Tzu now. He could maybe also just go for Cleopatra, but he might go for Sun Tzu. Then I will get the military resources immediately from Boudica, which is not ideal, but I think it could also be fine to just put the first worker after building the mine, then building the next warrior for free with Boudica, and maybe just start working the Stonehenge. Not ideal, but it could be fine, and then after that Boudica hopefully will produce some nice value. And then Mata has to decide now which leader he wants to go for, and he indeed goes for Sun Tzu. With that he will elect him. He takes the engineering genius, builds a mine, and with the engineering genius he has the, if he wants to, he can just finish the Rome roads at the next turn. Swin will go for Confucius, builds a mine, increases population, and takes the frugality as a yellow card. And then at my turn I will go for Boudica. I will build my mine. There's also an early Gutenberg. Maybe I could do something with him, but without having an alchemy or printing press card available, I don't really want to go for him, so I don't go for him. The other cards in 2 civil actions are not really that interesting. There is a code of laws for 3 civil actions, but I thought it is maybe just a bit too costly for that. I either have to delay my mine or I have to delay electing Boudica, so I don't want to do this, and instead I increase my population. Normally I would now take the urban growth with my last civil action, because I can use it very nicely to build my second lab. Also it allows me to build a second lab while also building a first stage of the Stonehenge, but I maybe have to build a warrior first with Boudica anyway. And also in this situation it could make quite a difference for my opponent's turn if I take the urban growth or not, because if I take the urban growth, code of laws falls down for 2 civil actions for Martin Pêcheur. Also Gutenberg would fall down to 1 civil action. I'm not sure if Martin Pêcheur would even go for Gutenberg. He has a nice turn with maybe just finishing the Roman roads. I also don't know if he would take the Code of Laws for 2 civil actions, but I thought there might definitely be a chance. Maybe he could just not finish Roman roads, but instead build the second lab and then just take the Code of Laws, and I wouldn't have that big of a problem with it, because Matabeshe at least doesn't have a leader that produces science, so maybe the Code of Laws would even be better suited for Swin. But now that the Code of Laws stays on 3 civil actions, Matabeshe very likely won't go for the Code of Laws, and that means that both Code of Laws and Knights will be available for Swin. And maybe he will just take both, but it would be a bit costly, and so I was hoping that with me letting the Code of Laws staying on 3 civil actions now, that I maybe will get one of those 2 cards, either the Code of Laws or the Knights. Maybe I will get a Code of Laws, because the Knights could definitely be important with Sun Tzu being the game. If not, I might have a chance to get the Knights. So I just thought with not taking the Urban Growth and instead of that taking the Rich Land, I maybe have a chance to get a strong card at my next turn. But I'm not sure. Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe Matabeshe will just finish the Rome roads anyway. So I was not certain about it, but at the end I ended up with taking a Rich Land, and at least with having the additional signs from the Stonehenge, maybe also from BUDOGIBE at some point, I was hoping that I have the chance to go for Iron, or if not, maybe Irrigation at some point without missing the signs somewhere else, so that I hopefully will have a chance to use the Rich Land at some point. I draw 2 cards, the Wealthy Territory and the Crusades. The Wealthy Territory could be interesting because Columbus is in the game, and BUDOGIBE has maybe a fine leader to just keep for the whole H1. Matabeshe will just finish Rome roads now that I let those cards stay on more civil actions. That makes a lot of sense. Maybe he would have just done the same anyway if I would have taken the Urban Growth. Swin will seed, and then he opens the development of trade routes. Now I was interested to see what cards he might take, and there are even more interesting cards coming down the row, with the Iron especially. Swin will build the second lab. He will go for the Code of Laws. That's just very strong, allowing him to invest the additional science that he gets from Confucius, and that means that I maybe have the chance to take the Knights now, but I also have the chance to take the Iron, so that could be an interesting decision for my next turn. My turn, I don't see it. No, I don't know yet how nicely I will be able to build a military. I don't have a tactic yet, and so I don't want to push the Crusades in the Wealthy Territory. I might want to keep in hand in case I indeed maybe end up getting Columbus. I also want to use the additional resource from BUDOGIBE for the military, because that means that maybe at the next turn I could have a chance to have a choice for her bonus. So I built this warrior, and then of course I also want to get out of corruption, and I can do this with increasing my population 2 times now with having taken the food from the development of markets and also getting the development of trade routes. I have that much food that I have now even that much population to potentially build a second lab immediately, but that would also mean that I don't get any of those cards. I still considered it. It would just allow me to get a bit of value going immediately, but I also didn't like it too much, and so first of all, I mean, I could just build a step of the Stonehenge, so I think it would be fine, but I would miss out on those cards. And the big question is, which one of those cards should I take? And I think it's definitely not an easy decision to make. One thing that maybe has to be mentioned is that there is definitely a chance that Matabeshe will get stronger again, because whatever cards I take, there will still be some interesting cards available for him. The Iron, the Knights, the Swordsman. So it's very likely that he wants to take one of those cards. And for him to get out of corruption, for example, increasing his population 2 times and building a lab isn't enough to get him out of corruption. And if he wants to get out of corruption by also taking one of those cards, he has to build a warrior as well, meaning that it's quite likely that he maybe will go up to 3 strength, and then I might need to invest the resources from BUDOGIBE again. And that's why I thought it might be quite nice to have military technology in hand, so that I can invest those resources actually in a nice way. Also, the event deck is flipping relatively quickly with Confucius and Sun Tzu being the game, so having a chance to invest more resources into the military and build up some strength might definitely be quite important. While with going for the Iron, maybe I can build up my economy quicker, but I might also be vulnerable to events, and who knows, if I leave the Knights to Matabeshe, for example, maybe I would even be very vulnerable to an aggression. So then I thought that I maybe just want to take the Knights, but at the end I actually made an interesting decision and went for the Swordsman instead. And no, there are 2 reasons why I went for the Swordsman here. The first reason is I might need to use the military resource from BUDOGIBE at the next turn, But I could, with the event deck flipping relatively quickly, with Sun Tzu being the game, there might definitely be the chance that I also will get the resource for the military from her in the following turns. And if I take the knights now, I can build a knight maybe at the next turn. But then, if I don't get more population out, I mean, maybe at some point I can finish the Stonehenge, but then it already might get a little bit tricky to use the resource again, while with having the swordsman I can build an additional swordsman, and then I can also upgrade those two warriors to swordsmen to use the two resources from her at some point, so it might make it a bit easier for me to actually use her military resources. And then it's also the case that I don't have any tactic yet. I don't know yet which tactic will get upgraded. And it could of course still be fine to go for the knights, but there's also Genghis Khan actually coming down the row. And with him, I am just prepared for whatever tactics Matapeshur upgrades. If he upgrades the knight's tactic, that would be perfect, and I can just use it with Genghis Khan. If he upgrades an infantry tactic, then, I mean, Genghis Khan is maybe not doing as much, but at least I can still use the upgraded tactic, or maybe if I draw something like heavy cavalry, I can maybe go for that. So I was not certain if I want to go for Genghis Khan at the next turn, but I thought it might be an interesting option, especially if I don't get a tactic yet, just so that I'm prepared for as many tactics as possible. And with that, I at the end took the swordsman, but I was not totally certain about this decision, but especially having the possibility to upgrade those warriors could just make it a lot easier for me to maybe use 2 additional resources from Boudica again. And at the end, yeah, I went for the swordsman so that I have something to invest my resources. Sadly, I will miss out on the iron, but hopefully at least I won't be behind the military, and I will have a good chance to use the resource from Boudica. I draw the medieval army tactic. With that, I was not too happy about grabbing the swordsman. I think with that, I probably would have preferred the knights, but at least if I should go for Genghis Khan at the next turn, maybe I can just go for the tactic anyway with the swordsman. But if I would have had knowledge about this, that I will draw this tactic now, I probably would have preferred having the knights now, so that I can go for the tactic and still for a different leader than Genghis Khan. Matapeshur seeds in the development of civil life is revealed. It could help him a little bit to get out of corruption. He will grab the iron, builds the second lab, increases his population, builds a warrior, and increases his population again. As you can see, he did build a warrior, but not to get out of corruption, thanks to the development of civil life. He could have maybe even get out of corruption without building the warrior. He also didn't take the knights, interestingly. He just takes the iron. At the next turn, he has enough resources to go for 2 upgrades. But with building the warrior, he first of all makes sure that I again have to use the 2 military resources from Boudica, which is maybe not even that bad for me now that I have the swordsman. But he also makes sure that he is the strongest, so if both Swin and I seed, he can maybe still seed and has a chance to be the strongest, or at least not be one of the weakest. Then it's Swin's turn. He will seed, of course, with having Confucius. He opens the development of planning, and the options for that are development of agriculture, crafts, and warfare. As you can see, Swin went for development of warfare. And he will just take the knights, finish the Colosseum, and then also increase his population. Now it is my turn. I will actually seed the Crusades. I will get strongest after my turn, so I thought it could maybe be nice to push the deck. Maybe Matapeshur wants to seed anyway, and maybe then there's a chance that a strength event is revealed. Maybe just the Crusades also that I now seeded. So I made a decision to seed, and then the development of settlement is revealed, giving additional population. From the development of planning, I choose to take the development of agriculture, because I thought in the situation it could just be quite strong to get a lot of population out. With the 2 additional food, I can increase my population immediately one more time, and I thought that there was also enough time left in H1 that I can maybe even get another population out if I want to. With having that many population, I can easily build a second lab while still having some more population available for the military. So I build a second lab now to finally get my science production going, and then I use Boudica to build the swordsman for the additional resource. I don't want to go for any upgrades immediately, because I ideally, if possible, want to again use Boudica's resource for that. I will increase my population then to get out of corruption. And then, with not having a tactic, with not knowing what tactic might get upgraded, even though Martabishur skipping the knights at the turn before could definitely be seen as an indicator that maybe he has already drawn an infantry tactic, but nonetheless, with only having the medieval army tactic and with already having committed to swordsman, there might have been a chance to also go for the knights this turn, but with already having taken the swordsman, I just didn't want to invest another 2 civil actions into the knights, so I made the decision to indeed go for Genghis Khan, but I won't elect him yet. I think I can still get some nice value out of Boudica, but at some point I can elect him, and with the medieval army tactic I have just the guarantee that I have a nice way to get some strength going, so I will go for Genghis Khan. I could now just build the first step of the Stonehenge in case I want to finish the Stonehenge at the next turn. That could maybe allow me to then also take a card at the next turn, but at the end I went for the irrigation. The second copy of Iron is coming down the row. It will be available for at least 2 civil actions for Swin. Here's some additional science from Confucius. Doesn't have any corruption issues at the moment, so can maybe relatively easily take it. Meaning there is definitely a chance that the Iron will be taken away. And I still have the rich land in hand, so the irrigation just makes sure that I maybe have a way to use the rich land. And who knows, if that should get a little bit military heavy this game, then having some additional food production could also be nice. I might miss out on the iron. There will also be the first copy of Alchemy gone, now that I wanted to take Genghis Khan, and with that it's just also nice to have something to invest into in my hand, so I thought irrigation is quite nice to have here. I draw a blunder, Martabishur seats, and there's no strength event revealed sadly, instead just a Confucius event, giving everyone a little bit of additional science. Martabishur will now go for the iron upgrades, will go for 2 upgrades, meaning he will also miss out on the second copy of knights, making it very likely that he will upgrade an infantry tactic, and then he goes for the alchemy. At the next turn he has 6 resources, so he can just go for 2 alchemy upgrades if he wants to, so he definitely can maybe upgrade his economy quite quickly and quite efficiently. Swin will seed now, and there's again sadly no strength event, instead a pestilence, but with me having taken the development of, or with me, I mean all of us got the development of settlement, but I also took the development of agriculture, and also the food from the development of markets. I have the irrigation, so I thought that pestilence might actually be nice for me, because I can maybe handle it a little bit easier. I think Swin also had a free population, Martabishur also has one, but maybe I can handle it a little bit easier with having the chance to go for the irrigation now. Swin will go for the knights now, builds one, reveals the phalanx tactic going up to 7 strength, also making it that I will again get the additional resources from Boudica, and then he will indeed go for the iron, the breakthrough, and the engineering genius, so at the next turn he can maybe start some iron production with getting the additional science from Confucius, and with the engineering genius he can also build a wonder maybe at some point. With losing a population to the pestilence, I can't easily build an additional unit, because that would cause an uprising issue, so instead I use the resource from Boudica to go for 2 upgrades. I will again keep her for 1 more turn, because then I can again get 2 resources out of her the next turn, so build maybe one additional swordsman for only 1 resource. I could of course elect Genghis Khan, making it to that I will be stronger immediately, but I just thought the 2 additional resources might be worth more, and at least I'm stronger than Martabishur. So I will go for those 2 upgrades, but it is not enough to get me out of corruption. I thought about just finishing the Stonehenge, then have this wonder finished and have it out of the way. So that could definitely be a fine turn, but I also thought it could be nice to get, especially if I want to use Boudica's resource at the next turn, then it's actually almost mandatory that I go for some food production. And if I want to use the rich land, I mean I could go for an upgrade without a rich land and maybe use the rich land at the next turn. But if I want to use the rich land now, I have to go for 2 upgrades to get out of corruption, and then at least I get the food production going quite quickly. And then with my last civil action, I could think about just building a step of the Stonehenge, or I could of course take one of those cards. If the step could be quite nice to have, especially if I maybe will want or need to finish the Stonehenge at the next turn, because the age might end relatively soon, so that could potentially be the case, but I thought with me not taking that many cards, there's a good chance that I will have even 2 turns left to still finish the Stonehenge. And at the end, I actually went for the Theology. It's definitely not a card that I really need. Maybe just building the step is also fine, but it could also be interesting to have the Theology. There's another copy coming down the row, but I don't know if that will be available for 2 civil actions for me, the Bread and Xerxes. could be available. If it would be available, I would prefer it because there's Darwin and there's Pierre in the game, but that might also motivate the other players to take it, so it's definitely not for certain that it will get it, and I actually thought it could be quite likely that it might be taken away, for example, by whsvin. And with that, I could potentially be in a situation where, I mean, it's maybe not that likely that Brain Circus is taken away and the theology will stay on 2 civil actions. But I thought it is maybe not bad to have a happy face technology in hand, because with my food production I might go a bit deeper into my yellow bank. If there's a rebellion, it could be bad. Maybe with having the theology, I have a way around it, and the one happy face from the Stonehenge won't really be enough. So I just wanted to have the option to fix my happy faces. Maybe I could also just wait for the next turn, but I also thought I can maybe just take it this turn, and then at the next turn maybe just finish the Stonehenge, or maybe I thought it should also be quite likely that I can even delay it for one more turn. As you can see, I discarded my event and instead kept the plunder, because I thought there might actually be a chance that I will be a bit threatening. Because Genghis Khan, if I elect him, build another swordsman, reveal the tactic, I will actually be at 12 strength, so that is definitely quite a bit. And Marta Bashir has only 2 military actions. He could of course reveal a tactic, but he at the moment doesn't have the swordsman available. I thought even though he has Sun Tzu, he could get a little bit into trouble, and maybe also whsvin. However, he has 3 military actions and it is already at 7 strength, so I was not certain. I could have also kept the event, but I thought maybe the aggression has some potential here. Marta Bashir's seats and the Crusades are revealed now. Sadly, I'm not the strongest, but I'm also not the weakest. whsvin will steal some culture from Marta Bashir. Marta Bashir will go for Columbus, has maybe drawn a strong colony with him, and then upgrades 1 more mine, increases his population. He has to do that, otherwise he would have an uprising issue now after he got hit by the pestilence, and then he will develop the alchemy. Interestingly, he went for another mine upgrade instead of for science upgrade. He has a lot of resource already, so that's an interesting decision. Yeah, but maybe he just wants to finish the resource production first, and one reason why he went for this upgrade might actually also be seen immediately now, because whsvin will seed now, and the event revealed is the new deposits. So this upgrade actually gave Marta Bashir 2 additional resources now, and it seems quite likely that he has seeded this event, so that might have been the reason why he went for the mine upgrade instead of the science upgrade. Now he might even have that many resources that it might get difficult for him to spend all of those, but if he manages to spend all of those, then he definitely could build up some nice stuff. whsvin goes also for the iron now, sadly for him after the new deposits, but at least the new deposits also make it that he can go for 2 upgrades instead of only 1. He then takes the masonry and indeed takes the bread and circuses. The bread and circuses will be gone, the theology will be available now, but taking it now or the turn before maybe doesn't make a big difference now. Now it's my turn. I can't really use my politics phase. I will use Boudica's resources one last time, and then I will go for Genghis Khan. Definitely was an interesting game here with Boudica, because if you paid attention, then you noticed that I actually used her only for military resources, and yeah, and that means that I actually got, I think, 8 resources out of her in quite a few turns. So that is definitely quite a lot of value. And now that I actually need all of those units, or maybe can use them to be strongest now, and maybe even to pull off an aggression, that I think was actually quite a nice use out of Boudica, even though I didn't have a single chance to have a choice with her. And so I will go for Genghis Khan now, because with revealing the tactic, first of all, I don't have an easy way. I mean, I could keep Boudica and then have a choice at the next turn, but I just thought I will get 3 culture with Genghis Khan, which is not that important, but mainly I will get a lot of strength, which either will maybe make it that my opponents have to do something awkward in order to have a chance to defend, or if not, I maybe have a chance to pull this plunder off, especially against Marta Bashir. So I will reveal the tactic, putting me at 12 strength, and then I will just finish the Stonehenge. I thought about not finishing the Stonehenge, maybe taking the monarchy. Sadly, I can't develop the monarchy, because to get enough science I need to build 3 steps. If I then take the monarchy, I don't have a civil action left to develop it. And also it was really not that easy to get out of corruption if I don't finish the Stonehenge. So the monarchy could have been something nice to invest the science from the Stonehenge into, but at the end it just wasn't easily possible to grab that here, and so I just finished the Stonehenge, as it is a nice way for me to get out of corruption. And then I was just hoping that maybe I have a chance to get an H2 government form at some point. Now it's Marta Bashir's turn. He seats, and a Confucius event is revealed. With having that many resources, he indeed has now some issues to get out of corruption. Maybe I will be able to help him at the next turn. If he doesn't get stronger, then I maybe can play a blunder against him, and that could maybe fix those issues for him a little bit. But he actually manages to get out of corruption this turn with going for 2 lab upgrades and also building 1 religion. He also takes the theology, so he has also the chance to upgrade his religion at some point. Swin again seeds. He has seeded a lot with Confucius. Another Confucius event is revealed. A lot of additional science is gained. He will go for St. Peter's Basilica now. He has the engineering genius. He also has the Colosseum, so this happy face will already get doubled, meaning that he doesn't really need any happy face solution. So I think the St. Peter's Basilica is a strong wonder for him, and it makes sense to go for that. Before going for that, he will upgrade his last mine, and then he builds 1 step of the St. Peter's Basilica, meaning he can finish it with only 2 civil actions at the next turn and has still some civil actions left to take some stuff. And with Martha Bashir not having gotten stronger, with him only having 2 military actions, I'm guaranteed to pull this blunder off now. And I will take 2 resources and 1 food away. I mean, I probably need the resources more, but the 1 food is just quite helpful, as you maybe can see when I will finish, or when I will play my turn now. Because first of all, I will build 1 theology. It was also for me not that easily possible to get out of corruption. Maybe I don't necessarily need to invest into the theology immediately. But it's also not bad to have already fixed my happy faces together with the Stonehenge. Maybe having an H1 happy face solution can be fine. And also there could potentially be a rebellion. I have the civil actions out of the way, so I thought it's not too bad. And then after that I will again increase my population. I didn't want to save up too much food, because there's definitely the chance that the rats could be in there. So I didn't want to leave myself with that much food, even though having a rich land or something like that could be quite useful. But maybe I can have also a chance to get 1 of those yellow cards at the next turn. And then I'm now, with having taken just the 1 food, will be at 4 food, meaning at the next turn I can again increase my population, and in 2 turns I can again increase my population. So I just thought that is a better amount of food than when I would now be at 1 food, and being able to increase my population might be quite helpful for me to get out of corruption at the next turn. For now I will just have a lot of science saved up, meaning I'm definitely vulnerable to some Dark Ages, but my opponents also didn't really prepare that nicely for that, so I was hoping that maybe that event isn't in there. And yeah, maybe I just can spend it maybe in an H2 government form, or maybe this Code of Laws will be gone, so that's a bit of an issue, that I'm not really able to invest those science quickly, but who knows, maybe I will get something nice in H2. I will draw 1 card. Ideally, I maybe would have drawn another aggression, but that is of course also not very likely, and maybe Martha Bashir will find a way now to get a bit more stronger. I draw at least a heavy cavalry tactic. For now I'm fine with the medieval army tactic, but who knows, maybe it will give me a bit of an additional option. Martha Bashir seeds and the barbarians are revealed, and Swin has the most culture, will lose a population now, and as you can see it is actually quite close with the culture, and yeah. Now, having won the Crusades earlier actually comes back to haunt Swin, because now, without having won that event, he wouldn't have lost a population. Now he doesn't have a free population, so I think it's definitely a bit annoying for him to lose the population to the barbarians. And yeah, so the Crusades actually maybe turned out bad for him now. Martha Bashir will play the fighting band tactic, will upgrade it with electing Columbus. He then goes for the Code of Laws, develops it. He also goes for the Warfare, but he doesn't develop the Warfare, meaning he is again vulnerable to an aggression, but he also has seen that I have only drawn 1 card, so I think it's a reasonable risk to take. He also lets Barbarossa stay in 2 civil actions while ending the age, so that Swin loses Confucius. He will still cede, and the strategic territory is revealed, and now that I don't have an aggression in hand anyway, I actually was willing to bid a whole army here. There are 2 main reasons why I was willing to bid a whole army here, and one of them is actually possible, or has something to do with the heavy cavalry tactic. Because if I only rebuild 1 of those swordsmen and reveal the heavy cavalry tactic, I am already back at 12 strength. So having this tactic is actually relatively useful now. And the thing is, I am still somewhat threatening. Martha Bashir is only at 5 strength, so I thought with getting those 3 draws, if I get something military heavy, I might actually have the chance to go for a bit of a military pressure, maybe against Martha Bashir. So that is one reason, because I thought those H2 draws might be quite useful. As you can see, I actually do get a war and an aggression also in event, so I think it's a fine draw. And I thought maybe I could do something with that, especially if there is something on the road that will give me additional military action, if there's constitutional monarchy or strategy available for me at the next turn, which is not that likely, but then I could maybe make use out of those potential wars or aggressions that I could draw relatively quickly. And so that was one reason that I thought that draws might be useful, and I can rebuild my strength quickly, and without having those draws I can't really maybe put a lot of pressure on them, but now with having those draws I know what I have drawn and can decide if I want to maybe do something with my military or something else. And yeah, and the other reason is that the Suez Canal is in there, and I could have maybe had a chance to draw a colony already now, with me needing to fix my resource production. That would give me another way to do so. And the Suez Canal is, of course, in general quite a strong wonder. And now that I have the colony, my opponents won't have that available. So I thought that could definitely increase my chances quite a bit to maybe get a Suez Canal at some point. Svin will finish the St. Peter's Basilica this turn, and then he will just take and elect Barbarossa, and can then use his ability immediately 2 times, going up to 9 strength. Also using all of the food that he has available. And now it's my turn. I can't really use any of those wars or aggressions this turn because there's no strategy or constitutional monarchy on the row. So instead I just see the civil unrest. I'm not the strongest, but I still just wanted to push the event. And then another Confucius event is revealed, giving every player an additional science. There were a lot of Confucius events now already, actually. And this turn was a little bit tricky, because as you can see there is this early coal available. And the big question is if I should maybe play it safe and take it in hand, or if I wait for it to fall down the row for my next turn. And first of all, I mean, if I want to take the coal, then I think there is one way how I do it. Because I want to rebuild the swordsman, making me the strongest, and then I can take the coal while also taking one of those yellow cards, and that would then be the rich land, very likely. Or yeah, I would take the rich land then, because that would allow me to go for 1 coal upgrade already at the next turn. If I, for example, take the breakthrough, I wouldn't be able to go for the coal at the next turn. However, missing out on the breakthrough and maybe also the cultural heritage is also not that great, because then maybe with taking now Richland coal, I could invest into the coal, but then I wouldn't have that much science left. Also going into an H2 government form could be a bit tricky. I'm generally very low in science, so I thought getting this additional science from those yellow cards could actually be very crucial here. So yeah. So I thought, but on the other hand, of course, it is also quite strong for me to maybe start investing into coal immediately. Then I maybe have those mines upgraded relatively quickly. I could upgrade 1 mine at the next turn, another one at the following turn. I would be already at 7 resource production, and so that could be quite strong to get the coal. But I also thought there should be a reasonable chance that I get it at my next turn. I thought Matabasher, with having that much stuff lying around, with not having that much hand space, I thought he very likely won't deny it. Swin, on the other hand, I thought could potentially deny it. He has no corruption issues, and maybe not to do, depending on what cards are revealed, maybe he doesn't have to do that much stuff. So I thought maybe he could deny it, because that early coal could definitely be quite strong for me. But there is always the danger, it's always a bit problematic with denying such things, because there's always the chance that maybe the second copy will show up. There's always the chance that I maybe can go for something else instead, like a government form. And if I go for the coal immediately, I wouldn't have the science to go for government form. So I was hoping that the coal won't be denied, that I can allow myself to grab the rich land and those science cards, while hopefully still having a decent shot to still get the coal going at the next turn. And as said, if I take the coal now, it would be on one hand safer, maybe, because I would know for certain that I can invest into it. But on the other hand, either I would miss out on the possibility to upgrade already the next turn, or then if not, then I would miss out on those yellow cards, and then I think it could get quite close with the science that I have available. So I just didn't like that, and I thought it was just more reasonable to maybe hope to get it at the next turn. And so instead I first of all revealed a heavy cavalry tactic, going back to 12 strength, and with having those 2 cards in hand, maybe I still have the chance to do something with those cards against potentially Marta Pêcheur, or maybe even Swin, so Swin seems a little bit more stabilized, and then I will just take all of those yellow cards. I think having the 4 additional science available can be quite useful, and the rich land allows me to still maybe go for a coal upgrade, hopefully at the next turn. And yeah, so I at the end went for all of those yellow cards. Matapeshir will use Columbus immediately. As you can see, he went for the inhabited territory, so that's certainly helpful for him. He then takes the Rifleman. I think with having all of those warriors and with having a lot of resources, that makes a lot of sense, especially otherwise there's the chance that the Rifleman will be denied. So he goes for the Rifleman, goes for 2 upgrades, and then interestingly he will actually deny the coal. He is willing to take corruption for that. Instead he could have maybe increased his population. Maybe he didn't really know then what to do with his last civil action. There's maybe not that many interesting cards for him available on the first row. So he actually takes the coal and is willing to go for the denial, meaning that maybe I at my next turn won't have the chance to go for a coal upgrade. So I was not too happy to see that, but at least it means that he has a full hand now. Maybe that will actually cause some hand space issues even for a little while for him. So it's definitely a bit costly. He spends 2 civil actions, has corruption. So if there is maybe the second copy of coal relatively quickly, then maybe that denial won't really do a lot. On the other hand, with Swin being right in front of me and Matapeshir doing the denial now, there is also the chance that if the second copy is available, maybe Swin will also go for the denial with him, with the first copy already being taken away. So I definitely was not too happy to see this. On the other hand, it could be quite costly, and there's still a chance that I get maybe the second copy, or that I can maybe do some other stuff with my civil actions. Swin is the weakest now, but he's still willing to seed. Maybe he had the knowledge about this event, or maybe he just had saw a Matapeshir seeding at the turns before while being the weakest. And he will open the historic territory. It's not really something that I really need, but with Matapeshir getting stronger and with Swin maybe also getting the Rifleman now, I don't think there's a good chance that I can actually do something with potential military pressure. And there's still the Suez Canal in the game. Now the first copy of coal has been denied, so it could be strong to have an alternative way to get some additional resource production. So I was willing to at least bid 1 swordsman, definitely not 2, but 1 swordsman could be fine, even though I don't really need a happy face immediately. And with that I'm also actually able to win the colony. Swin then goes for Napoleon, as actually willing to grab him for 3 civil actions, interestingly. So maybe he's afraid of what maybe either I or Matapeshir could potentially do with having Napoleon. Matapeshir with upgrading those 2 warriors and getting Napoleon would already be at 18 strength. Maybe I could also do something with him. So maybe he's afraid, or maybe he also has some plans on going for a bit of an aggressive play himself, because with having Napoleon, if he goes for just 2 rifleman upgrades and elects him, he also will already be at 17 strength. So that is also definitely an amount of strength that I have to be a bit careful about. Now it is my turn. I won't use my politics phase, and I thought this turn I will first of all rebuild the swordsman, going back to 12 strength, and then I thought I kinda have to take the strategy this turn. I could of course do some other stuff, maybe just take some yellow cards, but as I just said, Swin with having Napoleon has now the chance to go up to 17 strength, and if I stay on only 2 military actions, I think things could get quite dangerous for me very quickly. And so no, I just thought having the strategy is very important here. And then I have a full hand. I can't really do a lot else anyway than developing the strategy. So I will just develop it, making it that I draw 3 cards, making it also quite a bit more likely that I will draw a tactic. And thanks to the breakthrough, I at least still have enough science left so they can also go for the Republic. So they don't have the chance to go for the coal sadly this turn, but with the strategy in a row, it could have been dangerous to go for the coal, so maybe I would have done. Probably I would have gone for the coal then, but there is the chance that I would get punished for that quite heavily. So it's maybe also not too bad to just have the strategy now. But of course, it is a bit bad having only 3 resource production, while my opponents have quite a lot of resources and maybe have a chance to invest those resources quite nicely. But at least I'm the strongest for now. I will still get a culture from Genghis Khan. I will already be 28 culture, meaning that I will develop a little bit of a culture lead with Genghis Khan, and at least I'm also still prepared to go for a government form or to go for the coal, unless it's only available for 3 civil actions, but with rich land I could still go for an upgrade at the next turn. At least I have enough resources to do that. I was relatively happy about this draw. A defense card is always nice to have, and I also have a colony, meaning that if I should get a Suez Canal, I have now a colony that I can use it for. Maybe not an ideal colony on one hand, nor on the other hand, if I should indeed miss out on the coal, then the additional resource from the wealthy territory and also the blue tokens with staying on bronze mines could actually be quite important. And as you can see, the Suez Canal is actually coming down the row, so that could definitely be an idea to potentially take that at my next turn. Matapeshir will go for 2 more upgrades, is now at 16 strength. Also going for Antony Gaudi to get a new leader immediately after he has used Columbus. It means he is also the strongest now. Swin still seeds, maybe meaning that he again doesn't expect any strength events, and he will actually win the vast territory now. I was willing to bid 2 units and my cards, but I also have to be quite careful that I can rebuild my stuff and that I'm not in any big danger of an aggression, so I couldn't really bid a lot more, and sadly that means that Swin is able to win this colony for just a night, and especially with having Barbarossa, that is quite a cheap price, and yeah, definitely improves his position, I think. He will then develop the Rifleman and will use Barbarossa actually to build a Rifleman and not another knight. Maybe he wants to be able to upgrade those warriors to Rifleman. He will elect Napoleon now, going up to 14 strength, going up to 16 strength, making sure that he's not the weakest, and then he just takes a bunch of yellow cards and develops the Masonry, which is interesting, because with developing the Masonry, he doesn't have enough science to go for a government form at the next turn, which maybe could be a bit problematic. On the other hand, maybe he's also eyeing the scientific method potentially. So then he could maybe go for that with having the Masonry already developed. Also, there's no government form on the row yet, and he also had a full hand, so maybe he just couldn't do that much else. And apart from just floating the civil action, but then he would have a full hand, which also would not be ideal. At my turn, there are 2 copies of Republic actually available, and I just thought I have to go for one of those, because both of my opponents still don't have an H2 government form or don't have a government form. So there is a chance that both of the Republics are taken away, and then the Conmons could be late. I have the strategy now, so the Republic I think is quite a fine government, so I just wanted to take that. I thought about some turns without going for the Republic, because that would make it a bit easier for me to take the Suez Canal. For example, I could just take the Suez Canal and increase my population to get out of corruption. Then I would need 2 more turns to finish it, so it would be somewhat slow, but it could also be quite strong. And to then get the 3rd colony, fix my resource production without needing any science, so that could be quite strong, but I just at the end didn't want to miss out on the Republic. And no, I will go for the Republic. The additional civil actions I think will be quite helpful, but now that means that I could of course take the Suez Canal, but I would have corruption, then I just think it will be too slow. It will just take too much time, and it isn't worth to take the corruption, I think, so I will just increase my population, and without needing to save up resources, I have now the option to build 1 more swordsman. That not only makes me the strongest, it also makes it that I get 3 additional culture from Genghis Khan, which is at least something. And then with my last 2 civil actions, I will take the cavalryman to have that technology in hand. That is definitely quite nice to have. And then I will also take the rich land. So now that I miss out on the Suez Canal, I kind of have to hope to maybe get a coal at some point. Sadly, I don't have the most science for that. At least I still have the cultural heritage. But I maybe just have to hope for that, and if I don't get it, maybe I somehow can use it for my farms, or maybe at some point for late oil, but I was just hoping that maybe I will get a coal at some point. I will get 3 draws, and I will just get 3 events. Mata seeds, sadly there's no strength event revealed, instead the knowledge of the ancients, which gives everyone some additional science, and I mean the science could actually be quite useful for me, could even allow me to go for a coal upgrade already the next turn if the coal should be available. Mata will develop the theology, that he can develop that for cheap thanks to Antony Gaudi, and now thanks to the additional science from the knowledge of the ancients, he can actually go for the Republic immediately, takes the opera, that is of course nice with Gaudi, and is willing to take the cannons for even 3 civil actions. And has now also 20 resources saved up. Swin will seed as well. Sadly again no strength event, instead a cultural influence, which doesn't change too much. Mata will gain 1 more culture. Swin could potentially go for the constitutional monarchy, but he is just waiting for that copy for the next turn, instead just upgrades the science production, and with that still has enough science saved up to go for the conman at the next turn. And I think he interestingly didn't use the breakthrough, so that's interesting. Especially because he still has some hand space issues, which could definitely be a hint to Dark Ages, or maybe he is fearing that Dark Ages might be coming, or he just has a fine way to play his turn at the next turn, with just keeping the breakthrough in hand, and then maybe he just prepares just in case there are Dark Ages in there, but definitely an interesting decision to not use the breakthrough here. And with upgrading his last warrior, he also makes sure to be the strongest after his turn. Now it is my turn. Sadly I'm not the strongest any longer, but I still will seed the crime wave. Thought maybe I at least have a chance to not be one of the 2 weakest, and if not, then it's maybe not the worst event to get hit by. And event revealed is the developed territory. And I'm actually able to win it. I think I definitely was not willing to build more than 1 unit, but I'm able to win it for 1 unit and a colonization card, and that makes it that I can go for the scientific method without having to play the cultural heritage, which will allow me to take an additional yellow card. So I think the science is quite useful for me. I generally need some additional science. Sadly, the Suez Canal is gone now. I have now quite a lot of colonies. Also, I will stay the weakest now. I can't really rebuild this unit, meaning that I can't get any culture out of Genghis Khan, but it just is very strong for me to get the science. The additional yellow token maybe will be useful for me as well. And so I was willing to bid for that. I will go for the scientific method now. Going for one upgrade. The coal is not available yet, so I will just go for the scientific method. I think going for the science production first is maybe not a bad idea anyway in this situation. And also there is Newton in the game, and that could potentially be a strong leader for me. I basically can decide which leader I want to go for, as both of my opponents have already committed to a leader, and Newton might be the strongest. I maybe can't easily support any operas or something for Bach. I mean, James Cook could also be quite an interesting leader, but Darwin with the theology is not really, so now I can maybe either go for Cook or Newton later on. And now, thanks to not having to play the cultural heritage in order to go for the scientific method, I can go for 2 yellow cards, and with me still being on bronze mines, I just went for those 2 yellow cards. The breakthrough, of course, could be quite valuable for me as well, and I definitely consider taking it. But especially with Swin still having Napoleon, and with them potentially having a tactic, if he has something like classic army, there's definitely the chance that things could be getting quite dangerous. And then I just think the patriotism could be very, very important to have for me. And with the additional science now from the scientific method and from the developed territory, I thought and hoped that I will be fine without a breakthrough. And thanks to the additional science from the developed territory, I can now go for the scientific method, and if I play the cultural heritage at the next turn, I have the chance to also go for the coal. The only bad thing is that I sadly have to use either rich land or efficient upgrade. The rich land 1 is not enough, and then now it is quite likely that I maybe don't find a way to use this yellow card, unless I maybe build a 4th mine or something like this. Sadly, I will miss out an additional culture from Genghis Khan. I will get an additional colonization card, and also the Cold War as an event. Martha Pescher develops the architecture, goes for the Harvard College, will finish that immediately. He has now 8 science productions, so he definitely doesn't have a bad economy with having that many civil actions and with having now very strong resource and science production. Also, as you can see, the coal is now coming down the road. I was very interested to see if maybe Swin will now also go for a denial, or if he will leave the coal available for me. Swin is the strongest. He maybe doesn't have a nice event to seed, so instead he goes for a raid. There was no chance that it will be successful, but he at least makes it that I have to discard some cards, and it maybe also means that he will go for the Conman, which of course makes a lot of sense. He uses the reserves for resources, goes for the Conman, is using the breakthrough this turn, and now he won't miss out on any draws. Even though he went for this aggression, he will go for another lab, is now also at 9 science production, so even more than Martha Pescher, and will go for the reserves, meaning that he won't cut the coal. At this point it's already relatively late, and even though the coal I think could still be quite strong for me, he in this situation doesn't want to go for the denial and instead rather wants to reserves for himself. He interestingly doesn't go for the selective breeding, but there's another copy coming, as well as an ocean liner service, so he could maybe just wants to leave him open to still go for an ocean liner service, and if not, he still has a chance to get a second copy of selective breeding, and then he maybe just wanted to have the additional resources or potentially also food from the reserves available. At my turn, I am the weakest, but I am actually willing to seed, and the event that I pushed is the wealthy territory. I will now switch to a new leader, and the good news is, with Sun Tzu being in the game earlier, I was on the heavy cavalry tactic now, but I can now just copy back to the fighting band tactic and don't miss out on too much strength. And with having the fighting band tactic, and with not knowing what tactic I get, I thought maybe I can maybe build a tactic for this colony, and that could help me with winning it. And also the 9 additional resources might just give me quite a big boost. If I now draw a tactic where I don't need that many swordsmen, it could also be a nice way for me to transition into the new tactic. So even though I'm the weakest now, I will seed, but actually I have the knowledge about the top event. It is the civil unrest, so there is not any danger for me, at least now. So I see it, the civil unrest is revealed, and I also wanted to see it because Martha Pescher has a discontent worker now, so if I see it now, he will now lose 4 culture, making it that the culture gap is even a bit bigger now, so that is definitely one advantage that I have. I still am quite a bit behind in my economy, but at least I have a bit of a culture lead, at least against Mata Bashir. Swin sadly isn't really that much behind in culture. And then this turn I will go for Newton. I have the choice between Newton and Cook. And Cook definitely could score me some culture, increases my chances even more that I maybe win the wealthy territory, so I think it could also be a valid choice. But I think my position is a little bit fragile with me still needing to fix quite some parts from my economy. And Sweden still is Napoleon, can maybe, if he gets the right tactic, and maybe the cannons can still put quite a bit of pressure on me. And then I just think the economical value from Newton at the end might be more important. And also the civil action that I will save this turn, I think, will also be quite useful immediately. We can see it this turn, when we will see the turn now. So I at the end went for Newton instead of James Cook. I will elect him. Then I will go for the coal with playing the cultural heritage. I have enough science to go for the coal now. And then I will use the rich land. As said, sadly I can't use the rich land 1. But I at least can go for an upgrade, going up to 5 resource production now. And with my last 2 civil actions, I made a decision to increase my population 1 time. And then I will play the patriotism, because that allows me to build 1 more swordsman, copy the tactic. And I'm not the weakest after my turn, which could maybe be important. And if I draw a tactic now where I maybe don't need that many swordsmen, then I can maybe have a chance to send some of them away for a colony. So like this, at the next then I can maybe upgrade my second coal mine, then I could maybe still get a decent economy. I already have my republic, I have now even more civil actions with Newton, and I have a culture lead. So I thought I probably don't have the strongest position here, but still a position where I definitely can do some stuff. I think the situation, every player has some stuff going for himself. But Mata Bashir, with having Anthony Gaudi, has just a relatively easy way to get more culture production, with also having the Republic. That might be a big advantage for him. He also maybe has a chance to rush out the ocean liner service this turn with the architecture, so I thought he can just maybe improve his position quite a bit in the next few turns, which could be a bit problematic, but at least for now I still have a culture lead, and I also can catch up with building up some economy now. And I was quite happy to see that this turn I will finally draw an H2 tactic, and also a tactic that I can use. I might miss out on the last copy of cannons, so it could be quite important to have this classic army tactic available, so I was very happy about this draw, because without a tactic things could definitely get quite dangerous for me. Mata Bashir doesn't see it while being the weakest, instead he will go for the ocean liner service, will just finish it, will develop the opera with Anthony Gaudi, and will build one with the urban growth, so he gets his culture production up to 8 culture reduction, and basically has now everything from his economy covered. But he won't develop the warfare, meaning that he will stay on 2 military actions for a little while. Sadly, I'm not really in a position to punish him. Transitioning into the classic army takes quite some effort, and also I don't have any cards in hand yet, but maybe Swin has some potential to maybe punish Mata Bashir for staying in 2 military actions, but with having those military technologies, and especially if he has a tactic, maybe it is not that big of a risk, and maybe he will be fine. H3 starts now. Sadly, I will lose the rich land now. Swin seats, and a call to arms is revealed, so there is a strength event on top. I will lose now 1 civil action, at least I also get a card, and it is actually a war over culture, so who knows, if I should potentially go for some military, then at least I have a war already available now. Swin missed out on the ocean liner service and on the first copy of the selective breeding, making that now he has to go for the second one for 2 civil actions. He will go for 2 upgrades that gets him out of corruption, and then he will take the urban growth and place the reserves for food, meaning he won't go for the cannons, which is a bit of a risk, but there might be rockets soon anyway, and it would have been maybe also somewhat costly for him. At my turn, I will take the Air Forces. It's a very early copy, and with the classic army, I think it's just very important to have the Air Forces available. So I was definitely wanted to take the Air Forces. And then with my remaining civil actions, I just went for 1 upgrade, 2 coal with the efficient upgrade. I just think it's important to get the resource production going quickly now, and at least the second upgrade. And then I have 2 civil actions left. I could increase my population, but the cards that are available for only 1 civil action are maybe not that important for me. Journalism is maybe not that great with already having scientific method, and maybe navigation could be fine with the wealthy territory coming. and I could potentially take it and even develop it immediately, but I also don't have the most science available, especially if I want to go for air forces and cavalrymen at some point. So instead I just went for the revolutionary idea, making it that I have more science available, and then I can maybe increase my population at the next turn. I will leave the cannons to Swin, so he can maybe make use out of them, but as said, rockets are coming soon anyway, and I didn't want to do a hate draft or something like that here. I mean, maybe there's a chance that I get a tactic where I need the cannons for myself, but I just thought the revolutionary idea should be the more useful card for me. We have also the beginning of age 3 now, meaning that we can take a look at the overview, and there, first of all, we can maybe make it that this black thing is going away, and now we can see that I still have the most culture. I also have catched up somewhat in my economy. I have no resource yellow cards in hand though, which is maybe a bit problematic, but I'm not that much behind the economy any longer. And I have a culture lead, however, I maybe don't have an easy way to produce a lot of culture in the near future. That for that, Martha Pêcheur is definitely better suited, who can just maybe easily get more population with the ocean liner service, and also can just build relatively cheap operas with the architecture. And Swin has probably the better military potential. So I still thought my position is a bit fragile, but I somewhat stabilized. Now I have the air forces in hand, so I thought I definitely have some things going, and I still didn't thought that I have the strongest position maybe, but again I think from this position on every player has a chance to win this game. I draw some pacts in the beginning of age 3, also the international tourism. Sadly I have only one wonder, so I think the chance that that pact would be accepted is maybe not that high. Martha Pêcheur seeds while being the weakest, and also actually gets punished for that, because the inhabited territory is revealed. He will lose 2 yellow tokens, and that actually will cause some famine issues for him immediately, as well as some happy face issues. So that is certainly somewhat annoying for him. He has to build a farm now, with that he can't build an additional opera immediately, so definitely not a great event for him. But he at least gets the second copy of Air Forces, making it that Swin very early missed out on both copies of Air Forces, probably making it quite a bit more difficult for him in case he wants to go for military play. And Martha Pêcheur is also catching up quite a bit in culture, with having 10 production. Swin seeds and a wealthy territory is revealed now, and with having the classic army tactic and with not needing that many swordsmen for that, I indeed was willing to bid an army and also my colonization card for that, because I think the additional resource will be quite helpful for me, and as said, I probably don't need that many swordsmen now. I send 2 of them away, and with that I'm able to win the colony. Swin will take the reserves, increases his population, will also take the journalism, will actually build one of those, probably. At least he developed it for now. Yes, he will build one with the urban growth, going up to 11 science production, also increasing his science production, so that is definitely not bad. At my turn, I am the weakest, and so I didn't really want to see it, especially because the refugees are not that great anyway, and the impact of population as well. After I have now sent 2 units away, I don't have the most population available, so I just offered a pact, with me only having 1 wonder, and with me also getting an additional production. I really thought that it is not that likely that the international tourism would be accepted, and instead I offered a peace treaty to Martha Pêcheur. That of course could potentially remove some options from me in case I want to go for an aggressive play, but I just didn't really see how I can do that very nicely. And Martha Pêcheur has air forces and those cards in hand. There's a lot of science, so he can easily go for military theory, or maybe just even take the fundamentalism, and I won't deny the fundamentalism this turn. So I just thought it should be quite difficult for me. I don't have the most population. 1 classic army with air forces very, very likely won't be enough to go for a war, so I just thought it's very likely. On the other hand, Martha Pêcheur has only 2 military actions, so I thought he could still be a bit afraid, and with that maybe accepts the pact. And who knows, maybe Martha Pêcheur, if he gets military theory with having those technologies, could also look somewhat threatening at some point, so then the peace treaty could also be quite nice for me, but for now it's mainly about a little bit of additional culture production. This turn I will increase my population, I will develop the cavalrymen, I have to increase my strength by a bit, I want to use at least 1 military action. I could now destroy something to build another cavalryman and then reveal the classic army tactic, but I wasn't willing to do that. I didn't want to destroy anything of my economy yet. And I can also, instead of doing that, maybe do something else which is nice, and that is going for this early copy of mechanized agriculture, which I just have enough science for. Without that I get another population for another cavalryman, but then I am relatively tight on population, and even though there's no red cross, I think just to get more population out, and it's also still relatively early, the mechanized agriculture will be nice, also to increase my economy. So I go for one upgrade, and I was hoping that this food production will be nice for me. I could now go for even another upgrade, for example upgrading the coal, maybe even upgrading the second farm, even though that could be a bit of overkill. I can also upgrade the lab. And I think the main reasons for my last 3 civil action were now that I have to be a bit careful. Swin has a lot of science, has a lot of military actions. If he has a nice tactic, if he has a war, I have to be careful. So I think I did some calculations what he can do, and I at least wanted to be able to go for air forces and to build a cavalryman and an air force at the next turn. And in order to develop the air forces, I need more science, so I need to upgrade this with the revolutionary idea. I have not enough science to go for air forces, but with having spent those resources, now I don't have enough resources to build a cavalryman and an air force at the next turn, meaning that I have to take those reserves now. It's a useful card anyway, but I think not doing those two things would leave me potentially quite vulnerable. And so I just went for those two last action, and upgrading this and taking this card are just reasonable actions anyway, increasing my economy and giving me a flexible card. But I think with if I don't want to be too vulnerable, those two actions are somewhat forced. If I, of course, only if I want to play the turn before that, like I played it, but I think getting the mechanized agriculture is quite strong. And like this, I definitely have quite a decent economy now, and also have a way to fix my military and the next following turns. So that's definitely not bad. On the other hand, Matterpischer is catching up very quickly, so I was quite worried about that. I will draw 3 cards. Another war, Impact of Industry, which could at least be a playable impact, and also the Military Alliance in case I want to switch the pact. Matterpischer will go for the bro sports. I could have maybe thought about denying that, but I didn't really have the 3 civil actions to do that. And now Matterpischer has a way to fix his happy faces, but he had the theology anyway, so I'm not sure if a draft would have been justified. He then takes the fundamentalism in hand, making it that he at least has a way now to get more military actions in case he misses out on the military theory. He also develops the journalism for very cheap with having Antoni Gaudi, and can maybe with building 1 increase his culture production even more. Sadly, I get hit by a strength event now, the politics of strength, so now I get punished for being the weakest. Matterpischer will get 5 additional draws. I definitely wasn't happy about that. With having only 2 military actions, he didn't have that many draws before, but now he has a lot of draws and has definitely some chances to have drawn something nice, and I sadly will miss out on my next draw step, so definitely not great to get hit by this event. Swin will then build another library, has now a lot of science building builds, has over 30 in science production with that increases population, and with having that many science production those journalisms, he will just go for the internet, and there's definitely the potential that he can make that relatively big. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Like this, he has a decent wonder, and after that the only decent wonder maybe could have been the space ride. I mean, Manhattan Project maybe as well, but the internet could definitely have some potential for him, especially if he maybe gets flaming or something like that. So that should be a fine pick. He also takes the endowment and the movies. Movies could be important for flaming, and also maybe be a nice way together with the St. Peter's Basilica to fix his happy faces. Then it is my turn, and I have to think about if I want to seed. The thing is, I know the crime wave is on top, and I know that I will get stronger. With getting stronger, it could maybe be an idea to seed the refugees and hope that I will stay stronger, but my opponents have some ways to get stronger, so I didn't really like that, and I was rather hoping that maybe with getting stronger this turn, I have a chance to avoid getting hit by the crime wave. And this turn I also will increase my economy even more. I want to use my turn not only to rebuild my military, but also to do something nice. And the question is, what do I want to do? I thought about also going for just building 1 multimedia, but it would leave me very vulnerable. That didn't work out very nicely. And I think there are still some synergies left for computers. First of all, the Manhattan Project and the space flight. So for that, it is nice to get a lot of science production. Also, just having Newton is a synergy. And there's also Bill Gates. And I just felt like my opponents have maybe a bit of a better position with getting even more culture and with having that much science production. So even though I have some stuff going for myself, I thought my opponents' civilizations are maybe a little bit stronger. So maybe I have to hope for something to strike back. And I thought maybe having the chance to get Bill Gates going with computers could be quite strong. So I thought it could be strong to be set up for that, and even if I don't get him just with Newton and then maybe Manhattan Project or Spaceflight, having the computers could be quite strong. Sadly, the chances that I get Bill Gates are maybe not that strong, because if he is available in Swin's turn, it should be quite likely that he will go for him himself, but there is a chance, and so I thought having the computers is not bad. I will develop them, go for one upgrade. I will then take the engineering. I think that can be a very strong card for me, saving me some resources, being nice for some impacts. And then I also want to increase my population, build a rifleman, cavalryman, reveal the classic army tactic. I don't draw any cards this turn anyway because of the politics of strength, so I at least wanted to use some military actions. That also makes me the strongest potentially for the crime wave that is on top of the deck. And then with my last two civil actions, I went for the engineering genius and the efficient upgrade. I still think I can use a lot of resource to build up a lot of stuff, and the engineering genius will help me a lot with the wonder. And the efficient upgrade, I have a lot of ways how I can use that for my farm upgrades, for some lab upgrades, or with the impact of industry, maybe even for some mine upgrades. Sadly, I don't get a chance to draw an impact, maybe, but at least the impact of industry is still a somewhat fine impact that I can maybe seed at some point. Montepicheur seeds now, and at least I don't get hit by the crime wave now. He will take the space flight. This has the potential to be quite strong for him, and if he doesn't take it, I would have the chance to get it, and I maybe have the chance to make that quite big. So Montepicheur is just cutting this wonder now, leaving me only with the Manhattan Project, which is not has some potential for me, but definitely doesn't score me as much culture as the space flight would have. And then he will build one more journalism, getting even more culture production going, use the ocean liner service, and he will develop the fundamentalism. If he wants to take the space flight, he could take the military theory, but then he can't do anything else, and he would have corruption. So I think going for the fundamentalism makes sense, especially now that he has drawn that many cards with the politics of strength. It could be quite nice for him to maybe be able to keep more than 2 cards in hand, so that and also getting strongest now are definitely good reasons to just develop the fundamentalism. Swin seats, and the inhabited territory is revealed. I wasn't willing to bid that much because I still have a somewhat fine yellow bank and also fine happy faces, and I don't have the most population. Or, I mean, it helps with the population, but I just think I don't need it that much, and it could be nice to not be distracted by having to rebuild units. And so instead, Swin is able to win it for 1 rifleman. And then he will take the military theory. He has a lot of science production, so he can easily invest into that. Has now a lot of military actions. He has now 9 of them, so that would definitely be a civilization that would make a Payada happy with having that many military actions. And then he takes the tanks, the military builder, plays the endowment for 6 culture, develops the tanks, and then builds one and also builds a knight. Reveals the shock troops tactic, with that going up to 30 strength, but also preparing maybe to copy the classic army tactic at some point. Or of course upgrading all of those knights, and then of course the shock troops is quite strong. Having the shock troops, I have to be a bit careful. At least I know that Swin won't be able to get the air forces, but I definitely can't invest a lot of resources too easily, otherwise I might be in danger of getting hit by a war. This turn I am the weakest, but there are also only impacts now, so only the impact of strength would punish that. So I started seeding now, because I think I have to start putting some impacts in there, because I need just some way to score some culture. Now that the space flight is gone, it could get a bit tricky. There's also no big Bill Gates in the row this turn, so now I thought it could get a bit tricky for me to still win this game or to not finish last. So I have to just start seeding now, and impact of industry is a fine impact. Sadly, the impact of progress is revealed, which is not that great of an impact for me. I mean, I wouldn't have developed the engineering at this turn anyway, so it's not too bad that it is revealed, but of course it's not a great impact, and maybe later on I would have had a chance to make that a bit bigger. This turn, as you can see, I will actually go for the oil. And I just seeded the impact of industry into the deck. I have Newton, so developing the oil doesn't cost me a civil action. I still have an efficient upgrade in my hand that I can use to maybe upgrade a mine to oil. And I just thought it could give me one way to score some points. And maybe I can even just build up an additional mine at some point just for 5 additional points for the impact of industry. So I thought the oil could be interesting here, and with the efficient upgrade could even produce me a bit of additional resource at some point. So maybe not really, but it will give me some points for the impact of industry, and it at least will still pay off the resource that I invest into it if I use the efficient upgrade. I mean, I could have used the efficient upgrade on something else, so maybe that's not really true, but maybe I don't really need additional food production, and for the lab upgrade it would only give me 3 resources. So at the end I went for the oil. I will upgrade 1 bronze mines with the efficient upgrade, going up to 11 resource production. And then I still have some civil actions left, and I will go for even 1 more upgrade to computers. I think at this point I did some calculations and thought about what cards I want to get. The turns are already a little while ago, so I don't remember all of my thoughts precisely. But at the end I came to the conclusion that I want to rather have the additional science production than the additional resource production from the oil. Even though that could give me some points for the impact of industry. And so I went for the multimedia, and I think we can also see a very concrete reason here. With the additional science production plus the revolutionary idea, I can now develop engineering and multimedia at the next turn. I think that was already reason enough, because that could allow me to go for multimedia, potentially also for a copy of movie if that should be available, and engineering. So that just opens up some more possibilities for me to score some culture and also start building those buildings with having the engineering developed. And yeah, so I go for the multimedia, because at this point I of course also have to think about which leader I want to go for. And there is Fleming coming down the road. I think best for me would still be Bill Gates, just allowing me to build up a lot of stuff with having that many resources available and also scoring me some culture at the end. But it's definitely not guaranteed that I will get Bill Gates. If Bill Gates and Fleming will be available for Swin, I thought maybe he would rather go for Bill Gates. And then with the multimedia, at least I'm also prepared for Fleming now. I also have the chance maybe to get the movies at some point. I could of course also go for a bit of a denial and then deny Pierre just for the 8 culture from the Olympic Games, but that's just not that strong compared to what the other leaders could give me, and I think I have to go for something strong for me here. But for Martha Bashir, Pierre could of course be interesting, but I thought maybe I could lure Martha Bashir into going for Fleming, which of course also would be a very fine lead of him, but probably not as strong as Pierre. But with taking this patriotism, Pierre will be discarded, and Martha Bashir, if he goes for Fleming, would deny Fleming from Swin, meaning that for both of us, Swin and me, only Bill Gates and Gandhi would be left, and Gandhi is not really that strong for both of us, so maybe there's a chance that he would go for denial. That could of course turn out bad for me, the denial, but at this point I think I maybe have to hope for something, and then maybe Swin only getting Gandhi and me having the chance to get Bill Gates could maybe be something interesting. So I thought maybe there's a chance Martha Bashir will go for Fleming. And anyway, if he has a chance to deny a leader potentially from one of his opponents, and of course Fleming is also producing him a fine amount of culture. And yeah, but if he goes for Pierre, and if maybe Bill Gates is in the row and I will have the chance to get Fleming, it could be nice to have the multimedia. If Swin goes for Fleming, then I maybe have to hope that I get Bill Gates soon. So just like this, I'm maybe still prepared for 2 different leaders that both have the potential to be strong for me. I take the patriotism, because when has the shock troops revealed, I mean, he doesn't have that many resources available, so I don't think I have to be too afraid, but still having the chance to maybe build an air force relatively cheaply at some point could be useful. And I also then played a revolutionary idea, meaning with going for the oil I missed out on the reserves, so if I probably don't really have that many more, or maybe even less resource available with going for the oil, but at least it gives me more points for the impact of industry, and I have the chance to potentially go for more upgrades. Just have 1 more way how I can score potentially some points. And then I played a revolutionary idea. I might need to do this anyway in case I want to go for engineering plus multimedia the next turn, and then increase my population. With going for multimedias, I maybe also have the chance to still make the Manhattan project relatively big. I do draw some impacts now. Impact draws are of course at this point also quite important, because I might need some good impacts to still have a good shot on finishing a nice position in this game. Impact of happiness maybe not that great, but the impact of culture has at least some potential, especially if I should get Fleming. If Swin goes for Fleming, then that should be a useless impact, but if I should get Fleming, maybe at least I can then make something work with the impact of culture. And as you can see, all of the leaders are on the row now, so now I was very interested to see what leaders my opponents will go for, and Martha Bashir doesn't go for Fleming, instead he just goes for Pierre, and probably he's just best for him. He can easily build more bro spots. Those bro spots are very nice for more impacts, are also cheaper than operas or journalism, so that just makes a lot of sense, I think, to go for Pierre, especially with the Olympic Games, and I hate draft the fact that going for Fleming is probably not big enough. So he just goes for Pierre, develops the cannons, so that he, because the age might end before his next turn, so he has to be careful. Like this, he leaves the cannons develop and has the air force available. So if he has his tactic for that, which he maybe is indicating with going for that, then he should relatively easily be able to defend himself. Swin seeds now, and the impact of wonders is revealed. That sadly also isn't that great of an impact for me, but there are also just a bunch of impacts that my opponents are better prepared for. So I again am falling a little bit behind here. I definitely was very worried about my position. Swin will indeed go for Bill Gates, so Flaming will be available for me, and that allows him to have a lot of resource production. He will go for some upgrades, goes also for the democracy. I mean, he has that many science available. That's really easily possible for him to invest just 17 into the democracy, and then he goes even for another lab that will score him 3 points for the internet, also 2 points for Bill Gates, and scores him additional resource production. So if I should NDH, which I have the chance to do so at my next turn, then he still can finish the internet, but also has increased his how big the internet is, and also will get some additional points with Bill Gates at the end. He adopts the classic army tactic because that gives him 2 additional strength, which makes it that he is the strongest now for a potential impact of strength. And yeah, this turn with me having fallen even more behind, with both of my opponents having a stronger wonder than what I will be able to get, I was definitely not very happy about my chances in this game. And yeah, so I thought that I have to start seeding a potentially strong impact now. I seeded the impact of culture now, which is somewhat risky because now there's only 1 impact left in this deck, and I won't have the strongest culture production this turn already. And there is definitely the chance that the impact of culture maybe will be revealed too early. But at this point, I think I have to seed a strong impact every turn. I have to hope that I draw some strong impacts, and I can't just waste a politics phase. I have to hope for something, and so I see the impact of culture. I will have the chance to make my culture reduction the biggest. For that I should have a good chance, but there is a chance that I won't be quick enough for that, so it's a risk, but I think I have to take a risk here, and the impact of government is revealed, which is also not a great impact for me, but also not that bad. I will then go for Flaming this turn, because he's just the best leader left for me, and now I also seeded the impact of culture into the deck. And one big question that I have to answer myself this turn: do I want to end the age, or do I want to prolong the game? And prolonging the game is a bit tricky in that sense that Swin has a lot of resource production now. An additional turn will allow him to make his internet even bigger. Marta Becher can build more bro sports, can develop more technologies for the space flight. So it is somewhat bad, but I just thought about, I counted the points when I end the age now and what I will be able to do at the next turn, and I just didn't really find a nice way how I have good chances to win the game then. And at least I will go for Flaming. And from the next turn on, when I will have a multimedia and a movie set up, hopefully, I will have a lot of culture production, more than my opponents. So prolonging the game at least is nice in that sense. And I just have a bit more time to maybe do something. My opponents also will be able to do something, so I was not too hopeful with prolonging the game as well, but at least there's a bit more time for maybe some unexpected stuff to happen. If I just end the game, I just didn't really see any big hopes for me. And like this, maybe I'm very lucky and draw 2 strong impacts, and if I maybe then make those impacts work and get a lot of culture reduction with Flaming, maybe also somehow implement the Manhattan Project for some additional points, maybe somehow I could still catch up with my culture. And so I will go for Flaming, I will develop the engineering. I could go for multimedia, but I have a lot of science production already, and so instead I rather made a decision to go for the movies for more additional culture production immediately. I will also develop that, saving another civil action with Newton, will then go for Flaming, build a movie going up to 10 culture production. I will take the democracy. I will need that in order to secure my chances to win the impact of culture. And then now potentially I could end the age with just taking 1 more card from the row, but as said, I didn't really thought that my chances to win, or also not to finish last, winning is even more unrealistic, but that I have good chances then, so I rather prolonged the game. I was not taking any more cards, and I take at least 1 revolutionary idea. That makes it that I can go for the multimedia this turn and still for the democracy in 2 turns, hopefully building up a lot of culture production. and now I have a full hand, so I can't take the second copy of Revolutionary Idea. Instead, I actually went for another mine upgrade. At this point, I did a lot of calculations, and I don't remember all of those calculations precisely, but I came to the conclusion that I can hopefully do the stuff that I want to do. Maybe build a multimedia this turn. I mean, I just don't remember all of the calculations, but I thought about how many urban buildings I want to build, if I maybe want to implement the Manhattan Project. And going for this one upgrade now, I thought at the end still made it possible for me to do the stuff that I want to do. I mean, depending on where the cards are on the row, of course, things might be different, but this will also just give me 2 more points for the impact of industry, so I wanted to go for this upgrade now. With doing the upgrade now, at least it also still gives me a little bit of more resources during the next 2 turns. And now I was very, very much hoping that I will get some strong impacts, because I think without that, the game might be over for me. And I was actually quite happy about those draws. I think those draws definitely keep my chances alive in this game. The impact of science and the impact of strength, it's definitely not easy for me to make both of those impacts work. But with the Manhattan Project, maybe somehow I can just go for a lot of science production and then also get the strength from the Manhattan Project. And with those 2 impacts and somehow also making the impact of culture work, maybe I can do something. It won't be easy, but maybe I will somehow be able to solve this puzzle to make all of those impacts work, and then there could maybe still be a chance left, actually. So with those impact draws, I definitely had at least some hope left, but it also won't be really easy to make both of those impacts work, but I hopefully should at least be able to make one of those impacts work. Mata Bashir uses the Olympic Games this turn, will go for the civil service, takes the urban growth, will use that with the Harvard College to build another pro sport, will build even another pro sport, going up to 18 culture production, takes the computers, plays the reserves for resources, and then ends his turn, can develop the computers at the next turn while finishing the space flight. So going up to 38 strength. Age 4 starts now, and whsvin will go for movies. He of course can also increase his culture production now, make his internet potentially bigger. He will also go for the bro sports. Builds 1 has now just enough resources to finish the internet at the next turn, has fixed his happy faces, also has more strength. Now that it is my turn, I can take a look at the hand of one of my opponents with having Flaming, and I think the reasonable choice here is to take a look at whsvin's hand, because I have only 1 defense card in hand. I have a peace treaty with Mata Bashir that is actually useful for me now at this point, because Mata Bashir can't play an aggression against me, but whsvin can potentially, so at this point I think it's important to take a look at whsvin's hand, so I did this, and there is a good news and bad news. The good news is he doesn't have a single impact, so he won't be able to play any impact, but the bad news is, and everything else would of course be very unrealistic. He has some aggressions, I think a raid and also an armed intervention if I remember correctly, and with not having no impact, he basically is forced to try out an aggression, meaning I kinda am forced to build up my strength this turn. And yeah, so the turn is a bit tricky. I need to increase my strength this turn, but of course I also want to score as many culture, with maybe going for Manhattan Project, with increasing my culture reduction, with preparing maybe for both of those impacts. But I really played out a lot of different turns, and I didn't really come to a solution where I win both impact of strength and the impact of science. I just didn't find a nice solution, because impact of strength really isn't that easy. Mata Bashir, I won't really have the civil actions to take the military theory away, so he maybe can just go for the technology, going up to 43 strength, maybe even 2 more if he has some additional resource that he can potentially use. And then whsvin also as the military build-up can get a bit more strength going. So I just thought, no, it's just, I didn't find a way to make impact of culture, strength and science work. To not get hit by an aggression, I first thought about finishing the Manhattan Project this turn. I don't remember the turns, all of the turns precisely, but is it maybe possible to build a multimedia and finish the Manhattan Project this turn? I'm not really sure myself, but if I finish it with the engineering genius, I'm at 11 resources. If I also play the reserves, I have it. Oh, then I have 8 resources left, so I think it was possible for me to build a multimedia and finish the Manhattan Project this turn, so that was what I considered first. But for that I also think I would need to delete some units already, and then I would get the strength back from the Manhattan Project. I think that worked somehow like this. I also thought about making the impact of strength work with the going for air forces and maybe Manhattan Project, but I think making the impact of science work just allows me to score more culture with maybe optimizing how much culture I get out of the Manhattan Project, while on the same time preparing for the impact of science. So at this point there are just a lot of variations, and I tried out a lot of those. And at the end, I actually made a decision to not go for the Manhattan Project to fix my strength this turn, in order to maybe get just a bit more points out of it. But for that, I need a different way to increase my strength, and this way that I will go for now forces me to seed this turn already. I came to the conclusion that I very likely will only go for the impact of science anyway, because it just isn't really doable to go also for the impact of strength. And so I thought about first that I maybe want to seed it at the next turn, because if I seed it now into the next stack, I also again won't overtake SVin and science production immediately, meaning that the impact of culture and impact of science could both be revealed too quickly by my opponents. At least I know that SVin doesn't have an impact in hand, that I won't seed, so it's maybe not that likely, but definitely possible. But I still have to seed this turn, because I otherwise have to discard the impact. Impact of architecture is revealed. Sadly, I will improve this impact a little bit during my turn. It's also not really a great one, so my chances are definitely not getting bigger with this impact being revealed. But yeah, I still maybe have the chance to do some stuff. I will go for the Manhattan Project, but to increase my strength I won't finish it this turn. Instead I will increase my population and will build one cavalryman very cheaply with using the patriotism, so it only costs me 1 resource to build this cavalryman. And with that I'm at 26 strength. I have 4 military actions, not 5, the only one I have only because of the patriotism. Meaning with the 1 defense card I can just defend with having with being 9 strength behind SVin. So now I can defend, but if I would keep the impact of science in hand, I would have to discard some cards at the end of my turn. And if SVin goes for an aggression, which he will do, then I have to discard the impact, meaning if I want to go for this play with defending like this, I have to play the impact of science now, otherwise I have to discard it. And it also means that I definitely will discard the other impacts. I don't even have the chance to maybe go for the impact of strength, but I just didn't see a way how I can make this possible, while also getting enough culture and science production for impact of culture and science. And now I have still some civil actions left, and I will increase my population again, develop the multimedia, and just build one, increasing my culture production, going up to plus 16. At the next turn I can finish the Manhattan Project, I can go for the democracy, and then I can build either a computer to prepare for the impact of science and for the Manhattan Project, or I can build another multimedia and an HA lab in order to prepare for the impact of science. That would be enough to overtake SVin. So I have some variations at the next turn, but I was just hoping that both of those impacts won't be revealed before my next turn. And yeah, the reason why I didn't went for the Manhattan Project this turn is that one of the reasons I don't really remember. Well, there was one very specific reason. I think now at the next turn we can maybe take a look at the next turn. Maybe it was possible for me to do something that I otherwise would not be able. I mean, yeah, I can just now finish the Manhattan Project at the next turn with more culture points, so that's already enough reason. But at the other turn, I think I would have potentially implemented another mine upgrade. So I miss out on the culture from the mine upgrade, but it could also be that the impact of industry will be revealed before my next turn. But I will get some more culture from the Manhattan Project, and even though there's now even more risk with the impact of science potentially being revealed before my next turn, I just have to think I have to take some risks here and just maximize the amount of culture that I can score. So that was the solution at the end. There's definitely the chance that there is an even better solution. I think there are a lot of variations possible, but I have to defend against the aggression that is coming, and I kinda have to set up for as many impacts. Maybe some of you will find a way how I can also get the impact of strength going somehow, but I just didn't find a way to do this. And so that is this turn, and at the next turn at least I can increase my culture production even more and score a decent amount of points with my wonder. Matabishur can't go for an aggression against me because of the peace treaty, so he goes for one against SVin, but he's able to defend. And not seeing Matabishur not a seed was nice for me, because that means that there is definitely no impact revealed before my next turn. Matapische will go for the military theory, will even build 1 unit for free, is even willing to destroy lab to build another unit for free. Interestingly, maybe wanting to prepare for potential impact of strength, also for potential impact of harmony, but he himself actually has seeded no impact, which is interesting because at least in this deck, probably in the deck before, he has seeded some, but he had the politics of strength, so maybe he didn't draw that many nice impacts. But he finishes the space flight now for 25 points, and definitely has scored quite a lot of points already. And to not have famine with his last civil action, he will play the reserves for food. Now it is Swin's turn. He goes for an aggression as expected. I have to discard all of my cards now, but I played the Impact of Science already into the deck. And then he will go for the shock troops, dispense unit of knights that allows him to go for the military build-up. And now he's actually the weakest instead of only the second strongest, getting even more resource out of that, and then he can rebuild the tank and also go for 1 upgrade. Going for this 1 upgrade is only possible because he deleted a knight before, and now he finishes the internet for 28 points. So that's also quite a big internet, and he will also get a Bill Gates bonus of 8 before at the end of the game. And then he will also develop 1 more technology and increases his population. Now it is my turn. I can't use my politics phase. I can again use flaming. Sadly, I forgot to take a screenshot, so I can't really say what cards are in Matapischer's hand, but I don't think there was very, very useful info, but probably some info, but not very useful info. Sadly, I forgot to take a screenshot. This turn, I have to set up myself for the impacts and score as many points as possible. I will go for the democracy. I first was a little bit fixated on going for multimedia now and an HA lab to just get even more culture reduction with the multimedia and then finish the Manhattan project. But I think it is actually better to not go for the multimedia, and instead, after playing the reserves, I sadly have to delete 1 unit because if I increase my population, the worker would be unhappy. Instead, I can go for 1 computer, and that gives me, and compared to building 1 lab and 1 multimedia, that gives me 1 more science production, so I score 1 more culture with the Manhattan project. However, of course, I miss out on 3 culture production from the multimedia. The culture production, however, is not needed to win the impact of culture. But with not building this additional lab, I still have some resources left after finishing the Manhattan project, which I can do now for 18 points at least. And those resources I can now use either to go for 2 safe culture for the impact of industry, then display basically gives me the same amount of points as going for the multimedia and the HA lab, only that I have only deleted 1 instead of 2 units now, so that I'm better prepared for potential impact of harmony. So I can now just go for a mine upgrade for 2 save points, and then I at least have an impact of industry of plus 15 against plus 6 from Swin and Matapischer. I win the impact of science and impact of culture, so it's possible for me to catch up some points. But even with those impacts, I would still be a bit behind, so that would not really be enough. And so I made a decision that I have to hope for something here. There are 2 impacts that could potentially be very strong for me, where it is at least maybe not completely out of the question that Swin seeded those, because both of the other impacts that I didn't seed come from Swin. And so instead of going for the mine upgrade, I went for a farm upgrade, because I need to score a lot of points from my impacts, but I also need to catch up impacts from some points from the impacts that my opponent seeded or that Swin seeded. And of course I didn't have too much hope. Very likely there are just some impacts that don't give me a lot of points, but Swin, it's now a little bit of time away ago until he seeded those impacts. Maybe there is a chance that he seeded the impact of balance, and maybe there's a chance that he seeded the impact of agriculture in. Maybe hoping that I won't go for the second farm upgrade. Maybe he didn't have a lot of other strong impacts available, so I thought there is at least a chance, and especially the impact of balance would give me plus 8, impact of agriculture would give me some additional points, so I at this point just have to hope for something like this. And with upgrading the farm, I just thought maybe that is the way how I can increase my chances the most to still catch up some points. Especially the impact of agriculture would also score me a lot of points against Matapischer. Generally, I thought I have better chances to catch up to Swin, but who knows, with a very big impact of agriculture, maybe something could be possible against Matapischer. So because of that, I went for the farm upgrade, but now I really have to hope that Swin seeded the right impacts for me. Ideally, both impact of agriculture and impact of balance, then I definitely still have chances. and also maybe with only impact of balance and a neutral impact, I also could still have chances. But for now, I am quite behind. Marta Bescher and Swin actually have almost the same amount of culture. If we already count in the Bill Gates bonus, then Swin is only 2 points behind Marta Bescher. I'm quite a lot of points behind, so now I really need to catch up a lot of points with the impacts. I didn't have a lot of hopes, but I think I still can have some hopes here. The first impact is the impact of Harmony. That's not one of my impacts, and sadly not one of the impacts that are nice for me. Instead, my opponents gain even more points out of this impact, and as you can see, that we have also the impact of competition, the second impact seeded by Swin, and that again is quite a bad one for me, and scores quite a lot of more points for my opponents. Interestingly, both of those impacts seeded by Swin ended up now being better for Marta Bescher. But still both of them were very fine for Swin, and now with both of those impacts being revealed, I at this point didn't have any hope any longer, because now the culture gap is just way too big. At least I still can just catch up some points. With the impact of culture, I score 14 more points than Swin. Then there is the impact of industry, where I catch up 9. Actually, now I didn't went for the last upgrade, so only 7 points to both of my opponents. And then there's the impact of science, where I again catch up some points, so I'm actually not that much behind. But there's also the Bill Gates bonus still, so there is definitely still quite a gap, more than 20 points, but it's at least somewhat close. But at the end, I lose this game, and Marta Bescher is able to win the game, and Swin ends up at the second place. Yeah, so sadly another loss after losing the 4-player game before. That's definitely not ideal. I think this game I just took quite a while until I could really build up my economy, which was maybe one point that didn't go that great. Marta Bescher and had his iron production going very quickly. Swin also then built up his iron mines at some point, and then Marta Bescher, with investing into Harvard College and Ocean Liner Service, just managed to build up a strong economy, and with having Anthony Gaudi also managed to transform into this economy into culture production. So that just worked out very nicely for him, and he played it very well. I had at least a bit of a culture lead, and I also managed to get some production going, but it was just maybe a little bit too late, and I just didn't have a nice way to go for a lot of culture production, only at the end with flaming. But then my opponents had already overtaken me, and sadly I missed out on a wonder. Maybe with getting the space flight I could have had some chances, but the culture gap is quite big, and Marta Bescher would have then maybe gone for Manhattan Project or for some better impact preparation, so I don't think that would it maybe could have some potential to make a difference, but it could still definitely be very likely that I would finish at the last position. And yeah, so sadly I lose this game at the end. Marta Bescher's cold denial maybe did some damage. On the other hand, if I would have taken the call for 3 civil actions, I would have been very low in science. I maybe wouldn't have the chance then to go for the strategy very easily, while still being able to go for the Republic. So if the game would have gone a lot better with me grabbing coal for 3 civil actions, missing out on those science yellow cards, I'm not too much convinced, because at least at some point I still got those cool upgrades going. Yeah, but at the end I lose this game. Marta Bescher wins this game, and we can take a look now at the standings. And as you know, Himmelstosh also has 2 games remaining, and in one of those games I am not involved. And now at this point, with this game finished, the other game where Himmelstosh was involved but I wasn't in there has finished as well. And of course, especially after having lost one more game, I was very interested in how this other game might have ended, and I was very, very much hoping that Himmelstosh maybe doesn't win this game, because that could make the task for the last game quite difficult. So yeah, we can take a look at the standings now, and there we can then also see how this game finished where Himmelstosh was involved. And in the other game, Himmelstosh finished at the second position. Swin was actually able to win this game, and Chengisib lost the game, meaning Swin was able to win, and Himmelstosh scored 2 points in this game. And with that, we have a really crazy and very exciting situation before the final game. As you can see, only one game is left now before the World Championship is over. And Himmelstosh and I both have 13 games finished and 38 points at the moment. So we are the same amount of points, and the last game will be the deciding one. Whoever finishes before the other will be the world champion. So that will be a really, really exciting finish. And yeah, it is now really close. I had quite a lead. But now in the last 3 games I have lost, and with that, and with Himmelstosh finishing quite strong in his games, he has made quite a nice comeback. And now the question will be, will he go all the way and win the World Championship, or will I be able to strike back and secure the title for myself? So that will be now a very interesting finish. But after those games finished now, there is actually already something decided now, because as you can see, both Marta Bashir and Cengiz have both 14 games finished, and with Marta Bashir being able to win the game that you just saw, and with Cengiz losing the other game, Marta Bashir actually was able to overtake Cengiz before the standings that you saw at the beginning of the video. Cengiz had a 3 points lead, but now Marta Bashir is at the third position, 2 points in front of Cengiz, and with that he has secured his bronze medal, and with that also the mystery box that he is getting from CG as a prize for the third place. So congratulations to him. Svin has still 1 game left, but even if he wins the last 3-player game, he can only score 26 points, so he will now be guaranteed at the last place. But yeah, he is at least somewhat closer now with being able to win the game against Himmelstosh and Cengiz. Yeah, it is really, really exciting now. I hope you are looking forward to the last game to come. And now, in the next game that you will be able to see in the next video, there it will be decided which player will be able to win the World Championship. Alright, then thanks for watching. I also hope you had a good start into the new year, so Happy New Year to all of you. And yeah, then thanks for watching, have a nice time, and see you in the next video for the deciding video or the deciding game of this World Championship.